And these penguins have also been featured by some recent movies, like, for example, Mr. Popper's Penguins. That's not so recent. I think that would have like 5 or more years old. And the most recent movie, it's called Penguins. It was released last year by Disney Nature. And if you haven't seen it, I recommend you to take a look at it. It's quite funny, but at the same time, you can learn a lot because it tells you how difficult it is to be a penguin living in Antarctica. But there are other species of penguins that live outside of Antarctica because there are 18 different species of penguins. They all live in the southern hemisphere. There are no penguins in the northern hemisphere. So only 4, I would say, are more linked to ice and to Antarctica. But the rest of them, the other 14, they don't like the ice and they live in temperate regions. And there are a group of penguins that are called crested penguins because they have these beautiful, colorful feathers that form crests, like this northern rockhopper penguin. And I want to share with you something that happened just today, because this morning they announced that they are going to create a big marine protected area around Tristan da Cunha Islands. And those islands are in the middle of the South Atlantic Ocean, and it's the only place where these northern rockhoppers that you can see in the picture live. It's the only place on the planet where they live, and now they are protected. So another example for a crested penguin is the Snares penguins. There are only 25,000 pairs, and they live on the Snares Islands near New Zealand. So as you can see, some of them, they have very restricted populations. And then the smallest penguin is this little blue or fairy penguin. They live in Australia and southern New Zealand, and they are only 1 feet tall compared to the emperor penguins, which are the tallest ones, and they can have 4 feet tall. And as you can see, of course, they are called bluish because they have these gray, bluish, colorful feathers. Then you have other groups of penguins like the Galapagos penguins. And the Galapagos penguins is the species that live closer to you, to the northern hemisphere, because they are considered a tropical penguin. They live on the Galapagos Island in Ecuador, near the equator. And one important thing to know about the penguins is that they have specific characteristics that make them excellent indicators of what is happening in the ocean. If there is an oil spill, you will quickly realize, because you will start seeing oil penguins along the beach. If there is a lack of food in the ocean, you will realize studying penguins, because you will see that the penguins start starving to death, the chicks, and the adults take longer to get enough food to feed their chicks. And now I'm going to tell you later other examples of how penguins can be used as ocean samplers to know what is going on. But the oceans in general are in trouble, and penguins are in trouble too, because they depend on the health of the oceans. Of the 18 species of penguins, 55%, that is over half, are considered threatened. And let me show you how is the classification of these categories. So out of the 18 species, 5 are considered endangered. Other 5 are considered vulnerable. There are 3, these 3 with a yellow circle, they are considered near threatened. And these other 5 in green, they are listed as least concern. So this is like different levels of conservation concern. It doesn't mean that these ones we don't have to pay attention. It means that they have less problems than these ones, but they all need protection somehow. So as Joe mentioned, we founded the Global Penguin Society, which is an international organization that protects all the penguin species around the globe. It is called GPS. And I'm going to show you now in a video what we do. This is a brand new video, so you are among the first ones to see it, where you can see the kind of activities that we do. And this video is more focused on our education actions.
Penguins reflect how wonderful and fragile our planet Earth is. They are indicators of the health of the oceans and reveal to us the problems caused by human actions. Global Penguin Society is an international organization that promotes the conservation of all 18 penguin species in the world and the protection of the coasts and oceans they inhabit. To help penguins cope with the main threats they face, we work to generate useful conservation science, promote the protection of their habitats, and carry out multiple environmental education activities. Our education program aims to foster a conservation culture so that people value and understand the importance of protecting penguins and their environments. Through one of our main educational activities, we bring local students and communities to visit penguin colonies in person. Kids are visiting penguin colonies often for the first time in their lives, despite living very close in the same region. We offer them the experience of meeting penguins so that the next generations appreciate and preserve them. We provide lessons, donate books, and provide educational materials to schools so that learning continues in the classroom and at home. In addition to teaching local communities, we also carry out virtual education programs to reach the international community of children and adults. This includes digital educational material on our website, online classes to thousands of students streamed live from remote penguin colonies, as well as presentations and lectures given in person in multiple countries. Penguins live both at the sea and on land, so they uniquely face threats in both environments. Plastic pollution is one of the major threats that affects penguins on different continents, putting their lives at risk. To raise awareness of this growing problem in the communities, we organize beach cleanup events at penguin colonies and nearby areas. We also carry out awareness campaigns to reduce the consumption of single-use plastics at beach resorts. All these actions aim at generating behavioral changes to benefit the environment. The health of the oceans is critical for the survival of penguins and the fate of our planet. Learn more about these charismatic animals so you can join our global efforts to protect them. globalpenguinsociety.org.
Excellent. So as you can see in the video, one of the problems that penguins are facing is that they have to face threats not only in the ocean, but also on land. So they accumulate threats in both environments. And this is why penguins are threatened, and is the second seabird group most threatened on the planet. One of the problems that penguins are facing is climate change, and that affects the penguins that live in Antarctica because of the melting of the ice. And they depend on the ice because it's important for them, because it is it is a habitat for feeding and also for breeding. But climate change is also impacting penguins that are outside of Antarctica. Sometimes because it changes the availability, the location of food close to the colonies. But where I live here, there's been reported an increase in severe storms and more frequent storms when the chicks are small. So they get wet because their feathers are not waterproof, as you can see in the picture. So they get wet, and those storms come with very cold winds. So they die from hypothermia because they lose their body temperature. So there are new sources of mortality, new causes of mortality for penguins. Another important thing is marine pollution. Oil spills have killed thousands of penguins in 4 continents already. But the good news is that in the last decade, there's been a reduction on the amount of oil spills, and also on the mortality caused by oil spills globally. So that is kind of good news. But one of the problems we are having now, as you could see also in the video, is plastic pollution, because we are finding a big amount of plastics along the coasts near the penguin colonies and also within the nesting area. So we take communities and kids, as you could see in the video, to clean all the penguin colonies before penguins come from migration. One of the things that we do in terms of research is we track the penguins. As you can see in this image, you can see the penguin that is on the left with that red device on the back. That is a satellite, that is a GPS device, and allows us to determine where are the penguins when we don't see them, where are the feeding routes that they use, where do they eat in the ocean. And then with that information, for example, we do this. This is one of the colonies where we work, and each line represents the individual foraging trip, the feeding trip of a penguin. So with this scientific information, we can use it to protect the area where penguins eat in the ocean. For example, creating a marine protected area like the one we are proposing right now in light blue. And we also protect the land where penguins are nesting to reduce the human disturbance. So in that way, we can make life easier for penguins that live in these areas. And finally, I want to show you a final kind of figures, some numbers, and you can see a map, and we have impact in all the countries that are painted in yellow. We have been growing, even though we are a relatively new organization, and our actions have so far benefited 2.4 million penguins, because we have been able to do to protect habitat, 32 million acres of habitat for penguins in the ocean and on land. And also, as we've shown in the video, we take kids from local communities in developing countries to visit their nearby penguins. And so far, we have taken 6,500 kids to visit the penguins and to learn about them, because sometimes in these areas they have very limited information about the penguins. And these kids are very important because they will become the decision makers in the future and decide about the future of the penguins, the oceans, and also the entire planet. So with this, I am ready to, I'm happy to receive any question.
All right, you're back. Well, Pablo, thanks for that great presentation. I noticed a couple things. I really love that new video. That's a great new video.
Thank you.
You setting up one of the satellite units, which is really cool. So I'm going to share a link in the chat with the teachers. If you want to check out an event afterwards, we've done some events with Pablo right from the beach in really remote areas using a satellite unit. So you're going to want to check out one of those events. I'll share the link with some of the teachers. And then I'm glad you mentioned that new marine protected area. We were hosting Paul Rose this morning from Pristine Seas, and he was talking about it too. So it's a very exciting time, and any new area protected in the ocean is something to celebrate. Absolutely.
Amazing, and particularly because that is one of the most remote places on Earth. I mean, it takes like 10 hours by boat to get there from the nearby area, continental area.
Yeah, absolutely. A great day for nature today, no question. All right, well, let's start meeting some students here. I'm going to bring in, let's see, let's go to Miss Michael's group first. They are joining us in Glenview, Illinois. Let me bring them into the call. How are we doing today, Miss Michael?
Great, and we've got lots of questions. Our first question is from, let's see, from Emma. Very loud, Emma, so he can hear.
What are some of the predators of penguins?
Excellent, Emma. Thank you for that question. What are some of the predators? So since there are 18 different species of penguins and they live in different continents, they are facing different predators. For example, where I live here right now, the predators are pumas, you know, like cougars, and also foxes. Sometimes the penguin eggs are eaten by skunks or armadillos. The armadillo is well, you have armadillos in the States. They're like a small animals. They have like a hard shell, so they don't care if the penguins attack them from the back because they're kind of protected by that. And also some other seabirds like gulls or petrels, they also eat eggs or chicks, and sometimes they can eat adults as well. Of course, when they are in the ocean, they can be eaten by killer whales, which is normal also in Antarctica. And sometimes leopard seals, elephant seals, different kinds of seals, and sea lions as well. But one of the problems, Emma, with the predators is that in some areas, penguins were living in peace because they didn't have predators. For millions and millions of years, they didn't have predators, like New Zealand or some islands. But when some human beings started to colonize, to go and live there, they took accidentally or on purpose some unfamiliar predators. And for example, in New Zealand, there are millions and millions of possums. And possums, they eat lots of birds, including penguin chicks. So there are many efforts to eradicate, to eliminate those predators, because those penguins, they don't know how to defend themselves because they didn't develop those kind of behaviors to protect their chicks from those predators, because it is the first time they are facing those aggressive predators.
All right, great question to get us started. We've got a group of classrooms, Poppy, joining us from Stonewall. They are Stonewall Elementary in Fulton County, Georgia. And so it looks like they're studying adaptations right now. And so they're really curious about a few adaptations, that help penguins in the environment that they live in.
Excellent. So if I have to mention two adaptations that I really love, is that, penguins, the ancestor of the penguin used to be a flying bird, but they lost the ability to fly to improve the ability to dive under the water. So they started to adapt to live under the water and to feed under the water. And one of the most amazing adaptations is the emperor penguin, because they can dive 500 meters under the surface of the ocean, like half a kilometer, and they can be without breathing under the water for 23 minutes. Human beings, if you are very well trained, you can be without breathing for 4 minutes. And penguins, they do that for 23. So that is really, really amazing. And I think that is the most surprising adaptation I would mention now.
All right, very cool. Let's go to another live classroom here. This time, there we go. We're going to go to St. Mary's, Ontario. We've got some 6th graders hanging out with Mrs. Coles. Let me bring them into the call. How are we doing, 6th graders? All right, good to see you. Who's got a question?
How old do they go up to, like the penguins?
So how old do they get?
Excellent. So it depends on the species, but for example, Magellanic penguins that are 45 centimeters tall and they are black and white, they can live up to 30 or 35 years old. If you compare that to the Adelie penguins, the ones that appear on the Disney Penguins movie, Adelie penguins, they live between 20 and 25. So I would say that is surprising, because you don't expect a small bird like that to live that long. But another surprising thing is that they don't fly, for example. And when you calculate the amount of kilometers or miles that they swim per year, for example, a penguin can swim for during 1 year 10,000 miles. So if you calculate how many miles do they swim during their lifetimes, a Magellanic penguin can swim the equivalent of going around the planet 12 times during their lifetimes. So that is really amazing for a bird that doesn't fly, isn't it?
That's absolutely incredible. Very cool. All right, where should we go next? We've got a classroom joining us from Ohio. I'm going to bring them in now. Looks like a 5th grade class. Let's get them in and see how they're doing. How are we doing, Ohio?
Doing good. How are you?
Good. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us today.
Do you want to ask your question? Go ahead, nice and loud. Why did you start working with penguins?
Excellent. So, one of the things that was very important for me is that my grandmother, when I was very small, used to tell me stories about her visits to penguin colonies 100 years ago here in Patagonia, when nobody was paying attention to penguins or wildlife. In those years, they were killing sea lions and harvesting elephant seals to produce oil. So, but my grandmother loved nature, and she helped me to develop my connection with penguins. And then when I visited a penguin colony for the first time, it was shocking, because I had like 500,000 penguins around me and braying. Penguins, they go like, huh, huh. So imagine so many penguins around you, and I had this kind of strong connection. And in those years, there were a lot of penguins dying due to oil spills, and I thought I needed to help them. It's like, so I kind of decided to study, to go to the university, to have more tools to help them. So I am a researcher because I want to have useful tools to help them. But basically, I want to work, and I work on conservation. And I think we all love specific animals, or we all have passion for something. And if we train ourselves and if we do effort, we can all succeed and accomplish our goals. For me, it was to help penguins.
All right. Very cool. I think that's such a great message is, to chase your passions, no matter how, strange they may seem at the time. But, we talk to people all the time who sometimes they make up their own career as they go. So follow your passions. And, I bet your work, Poppy, I bet it doesn't feel like work. You love it so much that it doesn't feel like you're at work most of the time.
Exactly. It's all vacation for me.
Very cool. I'm going to grab a couple questions here from YouTube. I'm going to pop two your way. Poppy, Ali in Irving, Texas would like to know, what is the rarest penguin? And then we have another group, a grade 7 virtual class joining us, and they would like to know, how do penguins survive strong storms?
Excellent. So the rarest penguin species, one is the yellow-eyed penguin from New Zealand. The population is lower than 1,700 pairs. They live in subantarctic islands that still belong to New Zealand. The populations are very, as you can see, very small. And some penguins, they live on mainland in the southern part of New Zealand. But they say that population on mainland will go extinct in the next 10 years. So there will be like only penguins of that kind on subantarctic islands. And the other rare penguin species is the Galapagos, because the population is always lower than 2,000 pairs there. They always have a kind of small population, but due to climate change and these El Nino events, the populations have been declining sometimes because they directly skip breeding. During the El Nino, the upper surface of the ocean gets warm, so the penguins cannot find food up there, so they have to dive deeper, and sometimes they don't even get enough food, so they decide not to breed. That is why the population is so slow, and it's very difficult for them to recover higher numbers. And the second question was about how do they cope with storms. So it depends on the species, but the Antarctic species sometimes, they have very strong storms in the middle of the winter. How can you imagine? So what they do is that they don't have any caves. There are no place to hide there. So what they do, they get together. Maybe you've seen that on movies. So one penguin gets closer to the other one and to the other one, and sometimes you have thousands of penguins all together. So the ones that are sheltered inside those groups, they are warm because they are protected for the ones that are outside. But the thing is that they are all the time moving slowly, so they kind of share the time exposed to the wind and the cold, and also protected by the other penguins. In other cases, when there are very, very big storms, sometimes penguins, they live in nests. Most of the penguins, they do have caves, or they nest under bushes or vegetation. One amazing thing is that in New Zealand, this is hard to believe, penguins live in the forest, in very thick forest, like in the Fiordland area. This is the Fiordland crested penguin. So it's very hard to find them because they live in under rocks or logs in the middle of mountains, in steep slopes. So if there are storms, of course they are sheltered because they live in like little shelters.
All right, that's really cool, because I think most students tuning in today probably think about penguins and, Antarctic, cold and ice, and, forest environments or warm places like the Galapagos. I think that's probably comes as a surprise to some of the students tuning in today.
Exactly.
Cool. All right, I'm going to bring in Miss Smith. Miss Smith's class is tuning in live. They are a virtual school and they're in Scarborough. So I'm going to bring in Miss Smith. How you doing, Miss Smith?
Good.
Good to see you.
Yeah. So the question that we have is, how do you ascertain the penguin's age? That's what one student wanted to know.
Amazing question. Because, in general, science has not discovered a system to determine the age of a bird when you find the bird dead. When you find a mammal, for example, a deer, or you find a seal, or any other mammal, studying the bones or just studying the teeth, or you can determine the age of that animal when it died. On birds, we don't have a system yet. So the only way to know the age is when we can band in penguins, for example, we band them when they are chicks. So we know exactly when the year when they were born. So if we find that penguins in 12 years time, that happens to us all the time, we know, we see the number, it's like a stainless steel band that doesn't harm them. They have like a number, so we go to our registers and we know when the penguin was born, where, everything about him. And we get surprises. Sometimes I go to the field with students that are 20, 21 year old, and the penguins are 34 years old, so they are much older than the students. So that is surprising. But yeah, the only way to know the age is if you have a banded bird.
All right, another great question. I see Mrs. Martinez's class looks like they got the camera working. I'm going to bring them in for a second. How are we doing, Mrs. Martinez's group? Are you joining us from Georgia?
Yes, can you hear us? Oh, hold on.
No, we got you. Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. What's your question? Come here. Why do they like ice? Okay.
Well, like the cold water.
That's just their habitat. That's where they live. Go ahead, Gracie. So she wants to know how you know when penguins are warm.
Warm, in terms of temperature. Excellent, fantastic question. So, penguins in general, they are covered by feathers, all feathers. But some penguins, they live in some warm areas. So when they come on land to breathe, they need some system to eliminate the heat, right? So when they spend some weeks or months on land, and we go into the summer, they start losing the feathers around the bill and also around the eyes. So you can see the skin, and you can realize if they're really hot, because that skin is not white; it becomes dark pink. Because they receive a lot of blood there to dissipate the heat. And the other thing is that penguins don't sweat like us or like dogs. Like us or other species. But the way to dissipate the heat, to eliminate the excess of heat from the body, is they pant like dogs, So when it's very hot, you see them like dogs panting, and you also see that the skin is really dark pink. And that is one of the way we realize that they are hot.
All right, I remember that from some of our live events from the field, where it was
Exactly.
Really hot, and they were kind of just standing and panting and just trying to get rid of some of that heat. Very cool.
Exactly. And in the winter, when they go into the winter and they spend months in the cold water, then all the feathers start growing again. So all that skin is covered by feathers, so they stay warm.
All right, very cool. Tusana class is joining us. I'm going to bring you into the call. Are you joining in Georgia as well?
Yes, we are.
Very cool.
Have a question for you. Thank you so much for having us. What can students do to help save our planet and the animals that live here?
Fantastic. So there are many things that we can do. It doesn't matter where we live. Maybe you love penguins, but you don't see penguins, or you don't have, even sometimes you don't have a coastal ocean coast near you. But all the planet is connected through the atmosphere, through the air, and also through the ocean. Most part of this planet is ocean water. So whatever we throw in India or in other places, end up in another part of the world. So one of the things that we can do directly today and now is avoid single-use plastics. Try not to use plastics that you use for 15 minutes and then you throw away in the garbage, because that stays on the planet for hundreds and hundreds of years, and it can end up here, on penguin nest, or even along the coast that penguins use. Another important thing that we can do, not only for penguins but for all wildlife, is try not to waste anything. Do not waste food or energy, or light, electricity, water, because we are a lot of people on the planet, and if we save a little bit, if we multiply by the almost 8 billion people that are on the planet, that can have a very big effect. So I would say, do not waste resources, do not waste food or anything. And for the penguins, avoid single-use plastics, please.
All right, some great tips to get our classroom started. Let's see here. I'm going to grab a few off YouTube. There were a few good ones coming in. Let's see. So the first one here, when you put a monitor, a satellite tag on the penguins, do you get regular updates, or is it only when you get the satellite tag back later?
Excellent. So in the past, when we only had satellite technology. So we put the device and you could see the animal online. Every single minute you could keep track of the penguin all the time. That was very expensive. One device can cost $3,000. So we wanted the device back to recycle the battery, right? And you didn't need to recover the device to have the information. Sometimes one of the good things that if we didn't get the chance to find the same penguin, the device would fall and it wouldn't affect the penguin. Now with the GPS technology, all the devices are much smaller, which is so much better for us and also for the penguin, and much cheaper. So we can track more penguins. But the bad part is that with GPS technology, we do need to recover the device, because it's the only way to get the information. Sometimes we use satellite technology when we work on very remote colonies, because it depends on sometimes we have to navigate a lot in areas that are very windy, so it's not easy to get back to those islands. So we put satellite devices to be sure that we get enough information.
All right. So Miss Whitmire's class is joining us from California. They were supposed to be in a camera spot today, but their camera didn't cooperate. So they're on YouTube, and they've got a question for you. They want to know the strangest thing you've ever seen a penguin do.
So I'm going to tell two stories. One happened last week. and the other one belongs to a penguin that I'm going to tell you first the most recent one. We went to a penguin colony here in Patagonia, and penguins are incubating. And it looks like there was one penguin that was not able to find a partner to get a nest. So he found the egg of a rhea, lesser rhea, the lesser rhea, like the ostriches, kind of the same size of the ostriches. It would be like the counterpart of the ostrich here in South America. But the eggs are this size. So we found that penguin incubated that huge egg. I mean, the egg was almost bigger than the penguin. And so that was very strange. I've never seen that. I've been working on penguins for 32 years. Never seen that. But I think he thought, I don't have a nest, I don't have a partner, but I do have an egg now. That was strange. And the other thing, which is it is a story about a penguin called Turbo that still lives. He's still alive, and he might be like 21 years old now. He used to be very social. That is not usual. He used to go to our camp house, knock at the door with the bill. The door, it was a metal door, so he would go tick, 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 tick. We would open the door. He would come in looking for laces or pieces of material to furnish his nest, and he would go back. He would see us like far away working in the field. He would come like saying hello, something like that. And this is filmed, so because it looks like a lie. we have footage about this guy. And that is Turbo, and it's very social bird. Sometimes he came with a friend into the house, and penguins, they don't like to be touched, or they don't like to be that close to humans. Turbo would come into the house, and the friend would be like this, watching a Turbo getting close to us. So that was a very unusual penguin, and I think it's one of the strangest stories I can tell.
All right, very cool. Miss Kenya's class, they're joining us from Georgia as well. They were connected a second ago, but I think their microphone's disconnected, but I think they sent a question in the chat. So I'm going to grab that question from the chat here. Just bear with me. Oh, here we go. So they're curious. Miss Kenya's class wants to know about the eggs the penguin lay. So is it one egg? Is it two eggs? And I'm going to combine that with a question from YouTube, because there's one here that I like. It's a good question from from Miss Poole, and they're wondering in the colonies that you monitor in Argentina, how many young are born each year?
How many?
How many young penguins do you think are born each year in the colonies that you have close by?
Excellent. So in general, most penguin species, they lay two eggs. Some species, like the emperor, for example, they lay only one egg, because in Antarctica, there is no nesting material. You don't have branches, you don't have stones where in the places where they breed. It's only ice. So the emperor penguins, they can only have one egg, because they are like a moving nest. The adults, they put the egg on top of their feet, like this, on top of their feet, and they cover the egg with a layer of fat from the belly. So when they move with the egg with them. So they are only, of course, they can do that only with one egg. And in most other species of penguins, they lay two eggs, but the chances of breeding chicks, both chicks alive, depends on the availability of food closer to the colony, and also on the experience of the adults, because they have to be experienced and trained to get the food, to come back to the colonies and feed the chicks properly. Because one thing that is very sad about penguins is that an adult can go hundreds of kilometers to fish. They could come back, but if he's not experienced enough to transfer the food into the bills of the chicks, the food would fall on the ground, and the chicks, they don't pick that up. So that food is lost. So coming back to the question, some of the penguins, they do have two, and always the first one or the second is lost. So you have a different cases there. And for the second question, so each colony, even for the same species, each colony has a different performance, meaning that some colonies, they do very well because the food is close to that colony. So the parents, they can go get the food, come back very easily. Some of the colonies, the food is far away, so the chances of breeding chicks alive is low. So for example, one of the colonies we follow, they produce one chick alive per every two nests. You know what I mean? So you need two nests to produce one chick. I would mean the average is half a chick per nest. In some other colonies that are very successful, you have more than one chick, the average, more than one chick produced per nest, and those are very successful. In general, it is normal to have mortality of chicks. That is normal, and that happens to all the animals. It's one of the ways that populations are controlled, because otherwise you will have a lot of animals, and you need a balance in wildlife.
All right. Well, we're getting close to the time to call it for today, but I would love students to be able to follow your work and see some of the pictures and the videos. So where's the best place to do that?
Sorry, I lost you the last part. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. So if students want to follow your work, check out pictures and videos, where should they go?
Excellent, Joe. So you can follow us. We are on Instagram, on Facebook, and on Twitter, and we have our fantastic, refreshed, brand new website. It is Global Penguin Society. The website, of course, www.globalpenguinsociety.org. Instagram is at Global Penguin Society, and I am posting very curious and interesting things all the time. Like I just posted before joining you something that we've seen last week, like a llama, a group of llamas, guanacos, walking in the middle of a penguin colony among the penguin nests, and the penguins watching but not really paying attention. So if you follow us on Instagram, you can follow our work and all the interesting things that we see when we go visit penguins.
All right, very cool. Well, to all of our classrooms on YouTube, thank you for being so active today and sending in so many great questions. We had classrooms across North America joining us today, Poppy, so it was a ton of fun. I want to give a shout out to all of our camera classrooms, our groups in Canada and the US. Thank you for joining us and sending in great questions. And then Pablo, it's always a blast to connect and share your work. So thank you for the work that you do. And of course, thank you for taking some time to hang out with students today.
No, thank you so much for the invitation and the possibility to share what I love and what I do, because all the kids that are watching us, they will be the next penguin and wildlife guardians. So thank you so much for loving wildlife and nature.
All right. Well, I hope everybody has a great weekend, and we will see you next week for a lot more Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants conservation action. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.